Hello friends, Amy R here with Prairie Paper and Ink, more Distress Ink watercolor. This time using Simon Says Stamps Look for the Rainbows stamp set. This came out a year ago, 2 years ago, I forget. I've done several videos using this set. It's another favorite of mine. So I have the main floral images lined up on top of some Canson XL watercolor paper using my Misty. Use my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to ink up the stamps with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And as is tradition, I'm going to heat emboss them with Wow's Clear Matte Dull embossing powder. Just for the raised edges, makes my watercoloring easier. I don't have to worry about things bleeding into each other, any of that. Plus, the biggest perk of heat embossing is it keeps me from smearing the ink, because VersaFine Clair ink takes a little longer to dry. It's beautiful ink. I use the black more than anything. I've used some of the other neutrals, and then I do own all the colors. They're beautiful inks. I need to use the other colors because they're really gorgeous inks. But anyway, I think they're oil based. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent again. Stamped the images, coated them with the embossing powder, melted it. Off camera, I ended up stamping the leaves a couple more times and one more stem. So I have extras. And then I have my little palette here that I've been using in all my recent videos that has just drops of Distress re-inkers. And the last video I did, I added some Perfect Pearl powder to them. So I've got just this shimmery mix. And I added more Perfect Pearls this time because I really wanted like shimmer. So my greens, it's a massive combo now, but there was like, I had used Rustic Wilderness on the palette. I had Twisted Citron. Those are my two like fave green combos. But there's also, I think, some cracked pistachio thrown in there. Just, things just start mixing after a while. So kept the coloring super, super simple. Literally just, swirled in a little bit more of the Perfect Pearl powder and then wet the areas with just clean water and then picked up the color and painted. So for the actual florals, I'm using my little center mix, which is basically picked raspberry and seedless preserves mixed together. So it just kind of creates this pinky purpley color. And then with the Perfect Pearl powder, it's just shimmery and fabulous. I'll try to show it more at the end, and I'll have pictures on my blog too. It's subtle. It's not like sparkly in your face like some of the other shimmer watercolors and different things I've used on cards, but it still gives you that shimmer. So if you're more into like the subtle shimmer, and regardless, I said this in, I think, my last video, having a container of Perfect Pearl powder, just the regular Perfect Pearl. All the other colors are amazing too, but just Perfect Pearl powder must have. It's just, you can add it to things like this. I use it for splatter. You can mix it in a mini mister bottle or a spray bottle with water and use it as a shimmer spray on your cards. Like, I've shown that as well. It's just beautiful. So I painted the florals just with that mixture. And then the flower centers is kind of a combo of, there's some ground espresso, there was rusty hinge, it's just a brown. Just brown. I didn't add shimmer to the flower centers. I just left them because, the petals are beautiful. The leaves and greenery will have shimmer. And I'll have more shimmer going on, as always. So I did all my shimmer, and then I'm going to add splatter because I can't not. So the splatter is my go-to. There's just white gouache in that little pan area, and then I added more Perfect Pearl powder to it just because. So splattered that heavily. I should have used my splat box, but as always, I was in the zone and just, I don't mind. I just wipe it off, but I literally have splatter like on everything. Like, it's on my camera. It's everywhere. So anywho, did the splatter, set those aside. My background, very similar to a background I did the other day with this background stamp. This is the Open Grid background that was just released from Simon, and I love it. It's so basic and it's perfect. So I just put it face up on my desk, inked it up with clear embossing ink. I have my more watercolor paper here that I'd use my anti-static powder tool on. The same Wow Clear Matte Dull embossing powder, so it doesn't really look like anything, especially when it's melted. You can barely see it on this. So before I melted it though, I brushed off some of the excess with just a paintbrush just to make it purposely uneven, purposely imperfect. And then I'm going to melt this with my heat tool. And again, it's going to look like absolutely nothing. And then over that, I'm going to watercolor this blue mixture that's in my palette, which is of course off camera. But I talked about this in my last video. And it's a mixture of like Salty Ocean, Peacock Feathers, and Salvage Patina, and it's beautiful. And I was raving about it in my last video. I was like, oh, this mixture was just beautiful. So added Perfect Pearl powder to it, of course, and then painted this over. So the heat embossed areas resist the ink. So then you see that, grid area. And I just did messy watercolor, like just slapping on the color. Some areas are darker, some lighter. And it's got a bit of shimmer to it. And, some of the color will pool in those little squares. And I just love. So did that, let it completely dry. Once it was dry, I die cut it with one of Simon's rectangle wafer dies. And then these florals, everything is now dry, like the splatter's dry and all that. So I'm going to use the coordinating wafer dies to die cut these, just taping everything into place with my little Spellbinders yellow tape here. And just taping them into place so they don't move when I run them through my die cut machine. There's absolutely nothing worse than spending a lot of time coloring an image and then not taping down the dies, and you die cut it and it shifts and cuts like your image in half. It's happened. Anyway, die cut all the things. My sentiment is from the Small Script Trio wafer die set. I used the Thanks in the last video, and I still had it sitting out, and I was like, ooh, I want to use the Hugs one because they're just cute. So I did 3 layers of black cardstock and just stacked it together with craft tacky glue. I was going to keep it just black, but I was like, no. 1, I wanted it to stand out, and 2, I'm obsessed with the holographic, of course. So I die cut the top layer from some holographic cardstock and adhered that on top. So it's all shiny, shimmery, rainbow fabulousness. So adhered that into place. And then off camera, I actually stamped and heat embossed a sentiment from the Look for the Rainbows set just onto white cardstock. And then to arrange my little cluster of flowers and leaves, I'm just using a combination of foam squares and thin foam squares. So the main flower was popped up with regular foam squares, so it's popped up a little bit higher. And then everything else I'm kind of tucking in around it and either using the thin foam squares or like the stems and whatnot, I'm just using craft tacky glue to adhere them into place and letting everything kind of hang off the edge of this rectangle because this is smaller. I die cut the rectangle to be smaller than my A2 card front. So got all those adhered into place, and then I'm going to adhere my sentiment with craft tacky glue, and the little companion sentiment I'm going to adhere with just a couple of Darice foam strips, and purposely kind of pushed it off to the left a little bit. I didn't want to cover any of this Hugs sentiment because all the holographic cardstock, I was like, I can't. It's a crime to cover the holographic cardstock. So yeah, adhered that into place with a foam strip. And I could not resist adding more. These are the Flickering Butterflies wafer die set from Simon. And some more Lawn Fawn pearlescent vellum. This vellum is beautiful. I loves it. I was hoarding it for a really long time, and then I think I forgot I had it. But it's like just meant to be with these little butterfly wafer dies. They're the perfect little embellishment, and they don't add any weight, and they're just easy. I just add the tiniest little dab of glue to the center, press that down, let it dry. They're good to go. So I kind of stuck those throughout the card front, set that aside. The inside of my card, I'm doing what I've been doing in several videos. I have just a few of the stamps from the set. I'm just going to put them on acrylic blocks because it'll just make my life easier. And I have a mask for the large flower that I created in one of the videos I did with the set. Just a simple mask, stamped, cut out, and I keep my masks with the stamp set so that for things like this, the next time I want to use it, it's already done. So I'm inking up the stamp with Distress Oxide inks and sponge daubers. Again, shown this in the last several videos. I've also shown this using just inking up the stamp with Distress Oxide ink and then using my mini ink blending tools that I have that are saturated with oxide inks. Either one works. I'm just liking the daubers because 1, I have a pile of them from, years ago, and 2, they're smaller. so I can get a little more detailed like I did here. I did the picked raspberry on the outside and then seedless preserves, and then I just dabbed a bit of ground espresso for the flower center. And then I just put the mask in place. Doesn't need to be perfect because, again, it's the inside of the card. I don't really go for perfection, but the mask just helped, you know? So, because yeah, I probably wouldn't have. In fact, I know I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have cut a mask just for the inside of the card. But I'm going to set that mask back with the stamp set and use it for the next project. So I stamped the stem and the leaves. The leaves I did stamp too far away, so there was that gap and that was bothering me. But I was already going to stamp a sentiment on the inside, so I just grabbed a sentiment from the Look for the Rainbow set and inked it up with that VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And I just stamped it right there, so it covers up that little gap. So, you know, it just worked out. So I have little butterflies left over from the outside, so I'm just going to, of course, adhere a couple onto the inside of the card as well. So again, just the tiniest little dab of glue, that's all you need. So stuck those onto the inside of the card, and then I'm going to adhere the card front to the card base with more craft tacky glue. And then once this is adhered, there's pretty much hardly anything. The one leaf is still kind of hanging off the edge, a couple of leaves. I will probably trim those off. In fact, I'll have to, because this will not fit fully into an A2 card. The leaves on either side do stick out too far. So I will trim those off before I stick it in an envelope. Or you could stick it in a bigger envelope, like a 5x7. Whatever floats your boat. Yeah. But I left it on there because everything just looked pretty. So I used my flashlight to try and show how shimmery this really is. Like the flowers are all shimmery. The background's got some shimmer. The holographic sentiment. The shimmery butterflies. It was just fun. So as always, I will have a link below my blog post. Or a link below the video to my blog post. Links to the supplies. You can check out my channel, all my recent videos using like distress inks to watercolor and all that fun stuff. And yeah, you can check it out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!